Hey guys, tonight we are going to quiet things way down. We're going to step outside of time, leaving behind the noise and the notifications, and focus on the creation of a single, ancient tool. You are on the bank of a river that has no name you would recognize, surrounded by a forest so deep and old it feels like the whole world is breathing around you. The sun is warm on your back, the air smells of damp earth and crushed ferns, and the only sound is the gentle, persistent murmur of water flowing over stones. It is the kind of profound quiet that can make you feel either completely alone or completely connected to everything. We're going for the latter. Now, a small reality check. This entire process would take days, maybe weeks, of patient, frustrating, and sometimes dangerous work. Spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this experience without at least wondering where the nearest emergency room is. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're re-listening from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see where everyone is settling in for the night. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your journey doesn't start with a plan, not a blueprint anyway. It starts with a need. A deep, persistent need for something better than your own two hands. You need to shape wood, to hollow it, to smooth it, to make it into something useful. A shelter, a boat, a tool. And so you find yourself here, wading in the cool, clear shallows of the river, your bare feet sinking slightly into the sandy silt with each step. The water pushes gently against your ankles, a constant, living pressure. You're not looking for anything in particular, not yet. You're just feeling. Your eyes scan the riverbed through the shimmering surface, but your hands are doing the real work. They drift through the water, brushing against the smooth, rounded surfaces of countless stones that have been tumbled by the current for centuries, for millennia. Most are useless, too small, and they're just pebbles, fit for skipping. Too large, and they're anchors, immovable and impractical. You pick one up, a smooth gray disc of granite. It's cool and heavy in your palm. You turn it over and over, your thumb tracing its edges. The ergonomics aren't bad, as far as undesigned river rocks go, but it's the wrong kind of stone. It's strong, but it doesn't hold an edge. You let it slip back into the water with a quiet plunk, watching the ripples distort the sunlight on the riverbed before they fade away. You move on, patient. There's no rush. There's nowhere else to be. This is your entire world. This river, this forest, this task. After a while, your fingers brush against something different. It's still smooth from the water's polishing action, but there's a certain texture to it, a fine-grained, almost waxy feel. You pull it from the water. It's a nodule of flint, a dark charcoal gray with lighter chalky patches on its surface. It fits in your hand perfectly, its weight substantial, promising. This is it. This is the heart of the tool. The adze is one of humanity's oldest companions, a tool so fundamental that variations of it have been found in Stone Age sites across the entire globe. It's a testament to the fact that when faced with a problem, like needing to shape a very large piece of wood, people thousands of miles and thousands of years apart somehow arrived at a very similar solution. There was no user manual, no online tutorial. Just this, a stone, a hand, and an idea. You carry the flint to the riverbank and set it carefully on a patch of dry moss. The blade is found, but it is only half of the equation. Now, you need the body, the handle. You rise and turn toward the forest that lines the water's edge. The air immediately changes as you step under the canopy. It's cooler here, and the light is dappled and green, filtering down through 1,000 leaves. The scent of pine and decaying wood fills your senses. Your search is just as methodical here. You're looking for a specific shape. A young, strong tree, probably an ash or an oak with a branch that grows out at just the right angle from another, thicker limb. A natural Y shape, or something close to it. This is the key to the adze's unique function. Unlike an axe, which swings parallel to your body, an adze blade is set perpendicular, like a hoe. It cuts by being pulled toward you, scooping out chips of wood with each stroke. You walk, your feet silent on the soft earth, your eyes scanning the shapes of the trees. You pass by countless branches that are almost right. Too thin, too thick, too rotten, the angle too wide or too narrow. It's a slow process of elimination. Some historians still argue whether the adze was first developed primarily for hollowing out the logs that would become dugout canoes, or for hewing the timbers needed for early shelters. The truth is, the evidence is so ancient it's hard to be certain. It was likely a multi-tool from the very beginning, born from the simple need to remove a lot of wood in a controlled way. You imagine both tasks, see them in your mind's eye, and feel the phantom weight of the finished tool in your hands. A quirky thought crosses your mind as you inspect another branch. Early toolmakers might not have even started with this classic stone and wood combination. It's possible they used the jawbones of large herbivores, the row of teeth serving as a serrated edge to scrape and gouge wood. It's a slightly grim but resourceful image. Finally, you see it. A young ash tree, its bark smooth and gray. About shoulder height, a side branch juts out from a thicker, more substantial limb, forming a near-perfect angle. It's thick enough to be strong, but not so thick you can't grip it comfortably. You grasp it, wrap your fingers around the wood. It's solid, alive. You can almost feel the slow, steady pulse of life within it. This will be the handle. This will give you the leverage and control you need. You have the two pieces. The stone, cold and lifeless but holding the potential for a sharp edge. And the branch, alive and strong, offering its form for the handle. They are separate, inert. But in your mind you can already see them joined together, a single object, an extension of your own will. The potential is palpable. The work is just beginning. You settle onto a large, flat-topped boulder near the forest edge, the two chosen pieces before you like components of a kit that came with no instructions. The sun warms the stone you sit on, and the air is still. Your first task is to give the flint nodule its voice, its purpose, to turn it from a heavy, water-smoothed rock into a cutting edge. This process is called knapping, and it's a conversation between you, the stone in your hand, and the laws of physics. You begin by finding another stone, a hard, dense quartzite cobble from the river, heavier and rounder than your flint. This will be your hammerstone, your instrument of brute force and persuasion. You also have a piece of antler, shed by a stag long ago, its surface weathered and gray. This is your tool for the finer, more delicate arguments. You take the flint nodule in your left hand, cradling it on a piece of thick leather on your thigh to cushion it and absorb some of the shock. You instinctively squint with each strike, which is the Paleolithic equivalent of personal protective equipment. You hold the hammerstone in your right, feeling its weight, judging the angle. The first blow is a test. You tap the flint near an edge, a sharp, clear crack echoing in the quiet air. A small, thick flake of the chalky outer cortex falls away, revealing the dark, glassy material within. It's like opening a geode. The inside is a uniform, beautiful dark gray, the texture fine and perfect for the work ahead. Now the real work begins. Flint knapping is a reductive art. You are not building something up, you are taking it away. There's no Ctrl plus Z here. Every single chip is final. One misplaced strike, one moment of impatience can send a fracture spiderwebbing through the entire piece, ruining hours of careful work. So you are slow, methodical. You turn the flint nodule, now called the core, over and over in your hand. You're reading it, looking for platforms, for ridges, for the subtle lines of force that will guide your blows. You strike again, this time with more force and precision. Crack. A long, thin flake detaches with a satisfying shearing sound, leaving behind a rippling, shell-like pattern on the core. This is a conchoidal fracture, the beautiful and predictable way that fine-grained stone like this breaks. It's this predictability that makes toolmaking possible. You work your way around the stone, removing the rough outer skin, shaping the general form of the adze head. Each strike is a decision. Each flake that falls to the ground is a piece of the stone that can never be put back. Flakes litter the ground around you, sharp as surgical steel. These waste flakes, or débetage, are not all useless. Many are sharp enough to be used as small disposable knives for cutting cordage or scraping hides. Nothing is truly wasted. Archaeologists still argue whether the specific patterns of these flake scars on finished tools represent a kind of cultural signature, a shared tradition like a local dialect, or if they are simply the product of an individual artisan's personal habits and the unique qualities of the local stone. Looking at your own work, you can see how it could be both, a blend of learned technique and personal instinct. Once you have a rough, flattened, vaguely triangular shape, you set aside the heavy hammerstone. The time for brute force is over. Now you need precision. You pick up the antler billet. It's softer than stone, which gives you more control over the flakes you remove. The sound changes. It's no longer a sharp crack, but a deeper, duller thwack. You use the antler to thin the blade, to refine its shape, to prepare the edges for their final sharpening. The work is rhythmic. You strike, turn the stone, inspect, strike again. A pile of smaller, finer flakes grows around you. Your focus narrows until the entire world is just the stone in your hand, the weight of the antler, and the edge you are slowly, carefully creating. Finally, you move to the last and most delicate stage, pressure flaking. You cradle the stone blade in your leather-padded palm, and with the sharpened tip of the antler tine, you apply direct, focused pressure to the very edge. It's a tense, intimate act. You push, leaning your weight into it, until with a small, gritty crunch, a tiny, razor-thin flake peels away. It's an oddly quiet and deeply satisfying sound. You do this again and again, moving along the edge, creating a sharp, beveled cutting surface. This is the part of the process that could easily ruin a prehistoric manicure, if that were a concern. You are essentially microchipping the edge into a formidable blade. This is how the finest stone tools were made. Some Neolithic flint daggers found in Denmark, for example, were knapped with such astonishing skill, made so impossibly thin and symmetrical, that they were almost certainly ceremonial objects, symbols of power and artistry, rather than mere tools for everyday use. They were too beautiful, too fragile to be practical. Your blade is not so delicate. It is a tool meant for hard work. After another hour of patient pressure flaking, you hold it up to the light. It's finished. One end is the thick, heavy pole, which will absorb the impact of the swing. The other end is the bit, the cutting edge, which is now alarmingly sharp to the touch. It's not perfectly symmetrical, but it has a rugged, functional beauty. A faint, almost electric smell like ozone after a lightning strike hangs in the air from the freshly broken stone. You have done it. You have taken a dull, silent river stone and given it a sharp and dangerous purpose. It lies in your palm, heavy and cool, humming with potential. But it is still only half a tool. Nearby, the ash branch waits. You leave the newly knapped flint head resting on its bed of moss, a dark, sharp promise. Now your attention shifts entirely to the living wood. You pick up a heavy, blunt stone, a simple cudgel, and walk to the ash tree you'd selected earlier. Harvesting the branch is not an act of violence, but of careful necessity. You can't simply snap it off. That would damage the wood and create a weak point in the finished tool. Instead, you begin to strike the base of the branch, where it joins the thicker limb, with your stone. It's a slow, bruising process. Each blow is a dull, percussive thump that travels through the wood. You're not trying to cut through the fibers, but to crush them, to slowly and methodically sever the connection. After many patient strikes, the wood begins to groan. The fibers tear, splintering with a sound like ripping cloth. Finally, with a last splintering crack, the branch comes free. You catch it before it falls to the forest floor. It's heavier than you expected, vibrant with sap and life. The scar you've left on the parent tree is raw and pale, a small wound that will eventually heal over with a dark, wrinkled callus. You run your hand along the length of the branch. The bark is smooth and gray, cool to the touch. It's a beautiful piece of wood, straight and strong, with the Y-shaped joint providing the perfect architecture for your adze head. This is a practice humanity has understood for a very long time. The importance of selecting the right wood for the job. Ash, like hickory or elm, has long, straight grain and a natural elasticity, which makes it excellent at absorbing the shock of impact. A crucial quality for any tool handle, preventing the force of your blows from traveling up your arms and jarring your bones. You carry the branch back to your working spot on the boulder and begin the next stage, shaping. You don't have a knife, not in the modern sense. but you do have the sharpest flakes of flint left over from your napping. You select a long, slightly curved flake that fits comfortably in your fingers, its edge like a shard of broken glass. Using this, you begin to strip the bark from the ash branch. It comes off in long, satisfying ribbons, revealing the pale, creamy wood beneath. The air fills with a fresh, green, slightly sweet smell. The wood feels slick with sap. This process, too, is slow. You scrape and peel, your fingers growing sticky. The tool is beginning to take shape, but it's still two distinct parts, the stone and the wood. The magic happens when they are joined. But how to create the groove, the bed where the flint head will sit? You need to remove a section of wood from the thicker of the two limbs, right at the joint of the Y. This is where the adze's uniqueness comes into play. It's not just tied on. It must be seated securely, so it doesn't shift or wobble with each impact. To accomplish this, you turn to another ancient tool, fire. You build a small, controlled fire nearby, letting it burn down to a pile of glowing embers. Using a piece of bark as a scoop, you carefully place a few hot coals onto the spot on the handle you want to hollow out. The wood immediately begins to hiss and smoke. The smell is sharp and acrid. You let the embers burn for a few moments, charring the surface of the wood. Then you brush them away and use your sharp flint flake to scrape out the blackened, softened wood. This is a painstaking cycle. Burn, scrape, burn, scrape. You repeat the process over and over, slowly creating a shallow, curved depression in the ash. It is the most methodical, patient kind of sculpting. You frequently pause to pick up your flint adze head, placing it into the charred groove to check the fit. At first, it rocks and shifts, the shape all wrong. You note the high spots, the places where it doesn't make contact, and you apply the embers to those spots with greater focus. A quirky tidbit of wood lore is that some ancient cultures would intentionally harvest wood like this after a forest fire, seeking out branches that were naturally hardened and preserved by the flames. Fire wasn't just a destructive force. It was a partner in creation. You are channeling that same principle, using a tiny, controlled fire to shape the wood to your will. Historians still argue whether the meticulous shaping of these tools was purely for function, or if it also carried an element of pride and artistry. When you see an adze handle in a museum beautifully smoothed and perfectly proportioned, is that the result of a craftsman simply making the most effective tool possible, or were they also driven by an aesthetic sense, a desire to create an object of beauty? As you work, carefully scraping away the last of the charred wood, smoothing the edges of the groove, you realize the two aren't mutually exclusive. A tool that fits the hand perfectly, that is well balanced and pleasing to the eye, is also a tool that functions better. Good design is good design, whether in a prehistoric workshop or a modern design studio. Finally, the fit is perfect. The stone head settles into the wooden groove as if it were made for it. There is no rocking, no instability. You press it down firmly, and the two pieces feel like they want to be joined. They complement each other. The cold, hard stone provides the edge, the warm, resilient wood provides the connection to you. You hold the two pieces together, mimicking the swinging motion. You can feel the balance of it, the way the weight is distributed. It already feels like a tool. It feels powerful. The sun is beginning to dip lower, sending long, golden shafts of light through the trees. Your hands are stained with charcoal and sticky with sap. The ground around you is littered with flint flakes and ribbons of ash bark. It's a mess, but it's a creative mess. It's the evidence of a day spent in focused, quiet work. The tool isn't finished yet, but the most difficult parts of its creation are over. The stone has found its edge, and the wood has found its shape. Now all that's left is to bind them together. The two separate pieces lie before you, perfectly matched. The stone head is nestled in its custom charred bed in the ash handle. You can lift them as one, but the connection is temporary, held together only by gravity and good intentions. To make them a single entity, to make them a tool, you need a bond that is stronger than wood, stronger than stone. You need lashing and glue, prehistoric glue, that is. Your first quest is for the resin of a pine tree. You don't have to go far. The forest is full of them, tall and ancient, their bark thick and furrowed like the skin of an old man. You find one that has been wounded in the past, perhaps by a falling branch or the scrape of an animal's antlers. From this wound, the tree has bled its lifeblood. a thick, amber-colored pitch that has hardened in the sun, creating a protective scab. You use a sharp flint flake to carefully pry these lumps of hardened resin from the bark. Some are brittle and break away easily, falling into your cupped hand. Others are stickier, stretching like taffy. The smell is immediate and wonderful, a sharp, clean, medicinal scent of pure pine that cuts through the damp air of the forest. This stuff is the original superglue, only much, much stickier and with a far better smell. And it gets in your hair. It definitely gets in your hair. You gather a handful of the hardened pitch and carry it back to your fire, placing it in a shallow, hollowed-out stone you've prepared as a crude melting pot. Next, you need your cordage, your rope. For this, you have a strip of dried animal sinew, taken from the long tendon in the leg of a deer. It's stiff and translucent, hard as a piece of raw spaghetti. To make it usable, you place it in a pool of water at the river's edge, weighing it down with a stone. While it soaks and softens, you turn your attention back to the fire. You nudge your stone pot closer to the embers, and soon, the lumps of pine resin begin to melt. They slump and liquefy, turning from amber to a dark, bubbling brown. The rich scent of hot pine intensifies, filling the air around you. Ancient adhesives, however, were rarely just one ingredient. People of the past were masters of practical chemistry, and they often added binders to their pitch. You, for instance, crumble some dried charcoal from the fire into a fine powder and stir it into the melting resin with a stick. This makes the final product stronger and less brittle when it cools. It was a simple kind of polymer science discovered through thousands of years of trial and error. By now, the sinew has softened. You retrieve it from the water. It's now pliable and slightly slippery. You use your teeth and fingernails to separate it into individual fibers, each one incredibly thin but astonishingly strong. Sinew was a cornerstone of ancient technology. When it dries, it shrinks with immense force, creating a bond that is almost impossible to break. It's this property that you're about to harness. It's not the most glamorous material to work with, but it's far more effective than trying to find the prehistoric equivalent of a zip tie. You are now ready for the final assembly. With a stick, you carefully dab a generous amount of the hot, black, bubbling pitch into the wooden groove on the handle. It smokes and hisses as it touches the wood. You immediately take the flint head and press it firmly into its bed, the hot pitch squeezing out around the edges. The heat helps it conform perfectly. Now you must work quickly before the pitch cools and hardens. You take the first strand of damp sinew and begin to wrap. You start at one end of the stone head, looping the sinew around the wood, pulling each wrap incredibly tight. The fibers dig into the wood slightly. You cross the lashing over the top of the stone head, then back around the handle, creating a figure-8 pattern that locks the stone in place both vertically and horizontally. Your fingers are sticky with pitch, but your movements are sure and steady. Wrap, pull tight, wrap, pull tight. It's a hypnotic rhythm. You add another strand of sinew, overlapping the first, then another, building up a thick, powerful binding. Archaeologists and anthropologists still argue whether the specific patterns of these lashings, the precise way the sinew is crisscrossed and knotted, were purely a matter of function, or if they represented distinct cultural traditions, a way of signing your work that could identify a tool's creator or tribe. As you finish the last wrap, tucking the end securely under the other strands, you can see your own pattern, your own unique series of choices in the way the fibers lie. The final step is to seal the deal. You take your stick and paint the entire lashing, every visible strand of sinew, with another thick coat of the hot pine pitch. This will waterproof the binding, protecting the sinew from moisture and decay, and it will lock all the fibers together into a single solid mass. The tool now looks a bit messy, a far cry from a polished museum piece. It's not winning any design awards for its cleanliness, but it is finished. It is whole. You hold it in your hands. There is no wobble, no give. The stone and the wood are one. The pitch is still warm and the whole tool smells of pine and wood smoke. You've taken 3 simple things from the world around you: a stone, a branch, and the sinew of an animal. And through patience and skill, you've created something more. You've created a tool that can change the shape of the world around you. Now, you just have to learn how to use it. You stand up, the finished adze in your hand. The pine pitch has cooled and hardened into a black, glossy shell over the sinew bindings, cementing the stone and wood into a single unified tool. It feels heavier now, more purposeful. It has a surprising balance, the weight of the flint head pulling it forward slightly. You've spent a day creating this thing, from a simple thought to a solid reality. But an unproven tool is just a sculpture. The real test, the moment it truly comes alive, is in its first use. You need a subject, a piece of wood that can be sacrificed for the sake of your education. You find what you're looking for nearby, a thick section of a fallen pine, long dead, its bark peeling away to reveal the dry, seasoned wood beneath. It's perfect. No harm will be done if your first attempts are a spectacular failure. You approach the log with a sense of anticipation. Your first instinct, holding this object that is vaguely axe-shaped, is to swing it like an axe. You stand beside the log, take a sideways stance, and swing the adze in a wide arc. The result is underwhelming. The perpendicular blade strikes the curved surface of the log at a glancing angle. Instead of biting in, it bounces off with a dull, jarring clank and skitters away, barely scratching the wood. The vibration of the impact travels up the ash handle and into your arms. It's an unpleasant, dissonant feeling. A clear signal from the universe that you should have read the instruction manual if there had been one. This is the fundamental lesson of the adze. It is not an axe. Its power does not come from a sideways chop. You realize your entire approach has to change. You straddle the log, planting your feet widely on either side. It feels less like a noble craftsman and more like someone preparing for a very strange potato sack race. You grip the handle with both hands and lift the adze. This time, you don't swing it from the side. You lift it up in front of you and pull it down, swinging it toward your own body in a short, controlled arc. The blade aimed at the wood between your feet. It's a completely unnatural and slightly terrifying motion. Your brain screams that swinging a sharp object towards yourself is a bad idea. But you commit to it, pulling the stroke and letting the adze head fall. Thok. The sound is completely different. It's a solid, resonant, satisfying sound. The sound of a sharp edge meeting wood with purpose. You look down. A curved, scoop-shaped chip of pale pine, about the size of your palm, lies on the ground. And on the log there is a shallow, scalloped hollow where the blade struck. It worked. The unique design of the adze, the very thing that makes it so awkward at first, is what allows it to do its primary job, shaping a surface. While an axe is made for splitting wood apart with its wedge-shaped head, the adze is for peeling it away in layers, much like a giant, heavy-duty potato peeler. It's a tool for sculpting, not for destruction. Encouraged, you try again. You lift, you pull, you let the weight of the stone do the work. Thok. Another chip flies. You adjust your stance, your grip. You find that the motion is less about arm strength and more about using your legs and your core. A rhythmic rocking motion that is both powerful and efficient. Lift, rock, pull. Thok. Lift, rock, pull. Thok. You begin to work your way along the log, each stroke overlapping the last, creating a continuous flattened surface decorated with a beautiful, repeating pattern of shallow scoops. This is hewing. This is the art of turning a round log into a square beam with nothing but a single hand tool. Experimental archaeologists still argue whether the earliest adze users employed a short, controlled chopping stroke that originated from the wrist and elbow, or a longer, more powerful swing that involved the whole body and a bent back. Looking at the skeletons of ancient woodworkers can offer clues. Unusual wear patterns on shoulder and elbow joints, for instance, but the exact body mechanics of a person who lived 10,000 years ago are incredibly difficult to reconstruct with certainty. You settle into a rhythm that feels right for you, a medium swing that is both safe and effective. In some cultures, master woodworkers would take this to an extreme, a practice known as foot adzing. They would stand barefoot on the massive log they were shaping, swinging the sharp blade in the space between their feet. It's a technique that requires a level of skill, precision, and self-confidence that borders on insanity. Definitely not something to try on your first day. You fall into the rhythm of the work. The awkwardness begins to fade, replaced by a growing familiarity. You learn how a slight twist of your wrists can change the angle of the cut, making it deeper or shallower. You learn to read the grain of the wood, cutting with it instead of against it. The sun filters through the trees. Your breath mists in the cooling air, and the only sound is the steady, percussive beat of your work. Thok, thok, thok. It's a meditative sound, a sound of creation. You are no longer just the maker of the tool. You are its partner. You have found its voice, and it is speaking in a language of fresh-cut wood and patient, rhythmic work. Your practice on the fallen pine log has served its purpose. Your swings are no longer awkward and hesitant. They have found a steady, confident rhythm. The jarring clank of a misplaced blow is a distant memory, replaced by the solid, reassuring thok of a clean cut. You now understand the tool not just with your mind but with your body. You are ready for a real project, a task born of true necessity. The river that gave you the stone for your blade is a source of life, but it is also a barrier. To cross it, to travel upon it, you need a vessel. You need a canoe. And so you begin to search for a suitable tree, not a small branch for a handle, but a titan for a hull. You find it a week later, a colossal poplar felled by a winter storm, its trunk lying like a sleeping giant in a clearing. It is immense, easily 3 times the width of your own body, and perfectly straight. The first phase of the work is familiar, just on a much grander scale. You straddle the enormous trunk, your adze feeling almost small against its bulk, and begin the long, laborious process of hewing a flat surface along its entire length. This will be the top edge, the gunnels of your canoe. The work is slow and hypnotic. Thok, thok, thok. Each swing scoops out a fragrant pale chip of poplar wood. Each chip is a tiny victory. Hours turn into days. The sun moves across the sky, its light slanting through the trees, marking the passage of time. The pile of wood chips around the log grows from a small mound into a significant drift. This is a project measured not in hours, but in seasons. Your progress is so slow that you start to recognize the individual squirrels who come to watch you work, and you're pretty sure they're judging your technique. Once the top is flattened, the real challenge begins: hollowing it out. To chip away this much solid wood with just your stone adze would take an eternity. It would be a near impossible task, but you have an ancient and powerful ally: fire. You build a series of small, controlled fires along the length of the flattened log. You let them burn for hours, the flames licking at the pale wood, turning it black and brittle. The air fills with the thick, pungent smell of wood smoke and char. After the fires die down to glowing embers, the hollowing begins. You step onto the blackened surface, your feet crunching on the charcoal, and you begin to use your adze. The work is completely different now. Instead of the sharp, clean bite into solid wood, the adze sinks into the softened, charred material with a gritty, scraping sound. You're not so much cutting as you are gouging, scooping out the burnt wood in great black chunks. It's messy, dirty work. By the end of the day, you are covered from head to toe in a fine black dust. You look less like a shipwright and more like a chimney sweep who fell into a log. You work your way down the length of the canoe, clearing the charcoal, and then you build the fires again. Burn and scrape, char and gouge. This becomes the rhythm of your life. The emerging hollow of the canoe deepens with agonizing slowness, perhaps only an inch or two with each cycle. This method, this partnership between fire and tool, is ancient. The oldest known boat in the world, the Pes canoe found in the Netherlands, was made this way from a single Scots pine log somewhere around 8000 BCE. It is a testament to the ingenuity and sheer persistence of your ancestors. Archaeologists still debate whether the use of fire in hollowing canoes was a universal, worldwide technique or a more regional adaptation. While many ancient dugouts show telltale signs of charring, some appear to have been hollowed entirely with stone tools. A monumentally more difficult and time-consuming task, suggesting different traditions, different types of wood, or perhaps just a woodworker with an incredible amount of patience and a strong dislike for smoke. As the canoe deepens, the acoustics of your work change. Your adze strokes, once sharp and clear in the open air, now echo inside the hollowed-out log, the thok, thok, thok becoming a deeper, more resonant thump, thump, thump. You are literally carving out a space from the solid world. A quirky challenge for ancient boat builders was ensuring a uniform hull thickness without modern measuring tools. One clever solution was to drill a series of small holes through the hull from the outside, then plug them with wooden dowels of a specific desired length. The builder would then hollow out the canoe from the inside, scraping away with their adze until the inner tips of the plugs were just revealed. It was a simple, ingenious way to guarantee the boat wasn't dangerously thin in some spots and needlessly heavy in others. Weeks pass. The pile of charcoal and wood chips is now a small mountain. The hollow is deep enough now that you can stand inside it, the curved wooden walls rising up on either side of you. It looks like a boat. It feels like a boat. The exterior is still the rough, bark-covered skin of a log, but the interior is the smooth, scalloped, hand-carved heart of a vessel. The final product won't have cup holders or a fancy sound system, but it will have the one feature that matters most. It will, hopefully, float. You run your hand along the inside curve. It is a mosaic of countless individual adze strokes, a testament to the thousands upon thousands of pulls that brought this shape into being. The work is not done, but the great hollowing is nearing its end. You have turned a fallen tree into a promise of passage. The dugout canoe serves you well. It becomes an extension of your community, a bridge across the water, a tool for fishing and travel. It lasts for a generation, and the knowledge of how to make another is passed down, the story told through the rhythm of the adze. The motions are the same, the sounds are the same, the patient work is the same, but the world does not stand still. Time, like the river, flows ever onward, and new ideas drift in like seeds on the wind. The knowledge of stone and wood is old and deep, but a new knowledge is beginning to whisper at the edges of the world. A knowledge of a different kind of stone. Not the kind you chip and flake, but the kind you can persuade with fire to change its very form. Generations pass in the space of a breath. You are standing now in the intense, shimmering heat of a fire far hotter than any campfire. You have built a furnace of clay and stone, and with bellows made from goat hide, you and your kinsmen have been forcing air into its heart for hours, raising the temperature to a furious, roaring heat. In a clay crucible, nestled in the glowing core of the furnace, are greenish-blue chunks of a special rock you dug from the earth. To an outsider, it would look like you are simply trying to make some very ugly, slightly melted rocks. It's a process with a steep learning curve and, as always, no fire extinguishers. But then, the magic happens. The green rock begins to sweat, to bleed. A tiny incandescent bead of liquid appears on its surface, glowing like a miniature sun. More beads appear, merging, until a small pool of liquid metal shimmers in the crucible. It is a moment of pure alchemy. You have taken a solid, dead rock and coaxed from it a molten, living essence. Historians still argue whether this monumental discovery, the birth of metallurgy, happened in one place and spread throughout the world, or if it was discovered independently by different cultures in different places at roughly the same time. The evidence is scattered, pointing to ancient origins in the Balkans, the Middle East, and beyond, a puzzle of humanity's shared ingenuity. With long wooden tongs, you and another carefully lift the glowing crucible from the furnace. The heat is immense, washing over your face. You move quickly to a flat stone lying nearby, into which you have painstakingly carved a shallow depression, the exact shape of an adze head. It is a mold, a negative space waiting to be filled. You tip the crucible, and a stream of molten copper, thick and bright as liquid sunlight, pours into the mold. It hisses and spits, the smell of hot stone and incandescent metal filling the air. You watch as the glowing liquid fills every corner of your carved shape. Then the light begins to fade. The fiery orange cools to a dull cherry red, and then to the familiar earthy color of the metal itself. You must wait for it to cool completely, a period of forced patience. When it is finally cool enough to handle, you tip the stone mold over, and the copper adze head falls out with a solid clunk. You pick it up. The difference is immediate and profound. It is much heavier than a stone head of the same size, its density a surprise in your palm. The surface is slightly rough from the stone mold, and the edges are blunt and rounded. It has the shape of a tool, but not the purpose. Not yet. This is the dawn of the Chalcolithic, the Copper Age. Copper was the first metal humans learned to master, a bridge between the old world of stone and the coming world of bronze. It was a revolutionary material, but a soft one. Your ancestors used it alongside their traditional stone tools. Adze, the Iceman, the famous mummy from the Alps who lived over 5,000 years ago, is a perfect example. He was found with a beautiful, almost pure copper axe, a high-tech, priceless object for his time. But he also carried a flint dagger and flint arrowheads. It was a time of transition, of using the best tool for the job, regardless of material. And the great advantage of your new copper blade is its resilience. A flint head, if it strikes a knot or is dropped on a rock, can shatter, its intricate knapping work lost in an instant. But copper is forgiving. You take the new adze head to a flat anvil stone and begin to hammer its cutting edge with a smooth, heavy stone. The sound is completely new. Not the sharp crack of flint breaking, but a ringing metallic ting, ting, ting. With each blow, the soft copper compresses, becomes denser, harder. This is work hardening. You are not removing material, but compacting it, creating a durable, sharp edge. If it ever dulls or gets nicked, you don't have to start over. You can simply heat it and hammer it back into shape. It's the original editable document of toolmaking. Once the edge is hammered and honed on a whetstone, you fit it to an ash handle, just as your great-great-grandfather would have done. The hafting is the same, the careful seating, the tight sinew lashing, the final seal of pine pitch. The result is a tool that is both familiar and alien. It has the same form, the same balance, but it whispers of a new kind of power. This copper adze is now likely the most valuable object you own, a symbol of wealth, of skill, of a new connection to the world beneath your feet. You swing it, and the weight of the metal pulls it through the air with a new authority. The age of stone is not over, but it will never be the same. The sun is different here. It is not the soft, dappled light of a northern forest, but a relentless, white-hot glare that beats down from a perpetually clear blue sky. The air is not cool and damp, but hot, dry, and filled with the fine, sandy dust of a desert kingdom. You are kneeling on the banks of the Nile, the lifeblood of Egypt, in a shipyard that buzzes with the organized chaos of 100 artisans. The rhythmic sound of your work, the steady thump, thump, thump of an adze on wood, is multiplied all around you, creating a percussive symphony of construction. The tool in your hand is familiar in form, but it is no longer a rare and precious object. It is the standard instrument of your trade, a copper-bladed adze, its edge honed to a keen sharpness this morning on a block of sandstone. Your task today is to dress a plank of wood so vast it makes the poplar log of your ancestors seem like a twig. It is a colossal slab of Lebanese cedar imported at immense cost, its wood a beautiful reddish brown, its grain straight and true. The scent that rises from it with every stroke of your adze is intoxicating, a dry, spicy, perfume-like fragrance that speaks of distant mountains and ancient forests. If they could bottle this scent, they'd make a fortune. Ode to Pharaoh's boat, perhaps. This is not a simple dugout canoe for crossing a stream. This is a component of a floating palace, a sacred barge destined to carry your pharaoh, your living god, on the waters of this world and the next. So, no pressure. You work alongside dozens of other shipwrights, each to their own plank. An overseer watches from the shade of a linen canopy, occasionally making notes on a papyrus scroll. You're pretty sure he's just doodling, but you try to look busy and professional anyway, keeping your rhythm steady. Your knees rest on a woven mat, and you lean over the plank, your body accustomed to the specific crouch of your trade. The sun is fierce, and to protect your skin you've coated it in a sheen of castor oil. Some of the workers use more exotic concoctions for warding off the sun, blending oils with things like rice bran. You've even heard of some using crocodile dung, though you're not quite ready to try that yourself. Your adze rises and falls, the copper blade pulling toward you with each stroke, just as your ancestors learned to do. But the metal blade is a world away from the flint one. It holds its edge for hours of continuous work, and where the stone would have left a rougher, more bruised surface, the copper shaves the wood with a clean, surgical precision. Each stroke lifts a thin, fragrant shaving of cedar that curls and falls by your side. You are not hollowing or gouging now. You are smoothing, creating a surface as flat and true as the horizon. You work your way down the plank, your cuts overlapping perfectly, leaving behind a continuous scalloped texture that is the signature of your tool. This finish is not only beautiful, like the scales of a fish, but it is also a sign of master craftsmanship. This place, this time, is the pinnacle of the shipbuilder's art. Not far from here, a generation ago, the great Khufu ship was built, a solar barge of staggering size and complexity. When it is eventually rediscovered thousands of years in your future, archaeologists will marvel at its construction. They will see how its massive cedar planks were joined not with nails, but with intricate mortise and tenon joints, and literally stitched together with rope. And on the surface of those ancient timbers, they will see the undeniable, rhythmic scalloped marks of the adze, the ghost of a craftsman like you, kneeling in the hot sun. Egyptologists still argue whether the massive timbers used in these monumental ships were fully shaped and dressed in the forests of Lebanon before being shipped, or if they arrived in Egypt as rough-hewn logs to be processed in the royal shipyards like this one. The logistics of transporting such colossal, finished pieces of wood by sea and then overland are mind-boggling, suggesting that much of the fine work, the final shaping and smoothing, must have happened right here under your hands. As you work, you can feel the logic of it. You are fitting this plank to its specific place in the great vessel, and that requires constant measurement and adjustment, a task that could only be done on site. The sun climbs to its zenith, beating down on the back of your neck. The heat is intense, but the work is steady. The pile of fragrant reddish shavings around you grows. You pause to wipe sweat from your brow with the back of a dusty hand and take a sip of lukewarm water from a clay jug. You look down the length of the plank. The section you have finished is smooth and uniform, its surface a testament to your skill. You are a single craftsman in a vast enterprise, a single note in a grand symphony of creation, but your work is vital. The integrity of the entire ship depends on the perfect fit of each plank, and that perfection begins here, with the patient, rhythmic whisper of your copper adze on the fragrant cedar. The symphony of the shipyard fades with the setting sun, the 100 adzes falling silent one by one. The day of monumental, repetitive labor is done, but your work is not. You move from the open, dusty heat of the riverbank to a quieter, more enclosed space. It is a workshop, its mud brick walls keeping out the worst of the day's heat, its air thick with the concentrated perfume of cedar. Here the work is not for the living, but for the dead. The scale is smaller, the purpose infinitely grander. Lying on wooden trestles in the center of the room is your current project, a sarcophagus, a house for eternity. Your client for this particular commission is, shall we say, very quiet. They have very specific traditional requirements, but they aren't likely to complain if you're a little behind schedule. You approach the coffin, which is already constructed from thick, expertly joined planks of the same Lebanese cedar you worked on earlier. Its shape is anthropoid, mimicking the form of a swaddled human body. Your job is the final intimate shaping, the hollowing and smoothing of the interior, the place where a soul will begin its journey into the afterlife. For this, you set aside your large, heavy Shipwright's adze and pick up a smaller, more delicate version. The handle is shorter, designed for one-handed use, and the copper blade is more deeply curved, like a shallow spoon. It is a tool of sculpting, not of hewing. You run your hand along the inside surface. It is still rough from the saw and chisel. Your task is to make it perfect, to leave a surface as smooth and comforting as it can be. This is a core belief of your people. The tomb is the eternal home for the spirit, for the Ka and the Ba, and every detail must be perfect. The quality of this box is directly tied to the quality of an eternal existence. You're spending more time and care on this person's final resting place than most people spend on the houses they actually live in. The priorities of your culture are definitely different. You begin to work. The sound is not the solid thump of the shipyard, but a soft, rhythmic shuff. 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 It is the sound of a sharp blade taking the thinnest possible shaving of wood. Your strokes are short, gentle and precise, pulling the small adze toward you in a motion that comes more from the wrist and elbow than the shoulder. With each pull, a paper-thin curl of fragrant cedar peels away. You're working with the grain, feeling the subtle shifts in the wood's texture. This is meditative, focused work that requires all of your attention. You work with a quiet reverence, partly out of respect for the deceased, and partly because you're pretty sure messing this up comes with a high-level curse, and that's just too much paperwork. As you smooth the concave inner surfaces, you are participating in a tradition thousands of years old. The coffin is more than a container. It is a vessel of transformation. Soon artisans will come after you to paint its surfaces, inside and out, with intricate hieroglyphs and images of the gods, spells and guides for the perilous journey through the underworld. Historians and theologians in the far future will still argue whether these intricate coffin texts were seen as literal, functional magic that the deceased spirit would actively read and use, or if they were a more symbolic and devotional guide for the soul. To you, in this moment, the distinction is meaningless. It is a sacred duty, and the magic begins with your hands, with the physical perfection of the vessel itself. Your mind drifts to some of the other curious traditions associated with this work. In the tombs of some very wealthy nobles, strange, life-sized sculptures of the deceased's head have been found, carved from limestone. These reserve heads were a sort of spiritual backup, an alternate home for the soul should the unthinkable happen and the actual mummy be destroyed. It was an insurance policy for the afterlife, a spiritual spare tire. It makes your own work on this cedar shell feel all the more vital. You are preparing the primary residence, the main line of defense against oblivion. The light in the workshop begins to fade as evening falls. An apprentice lights a series of oil lamps, casting a warm, flickering glow on the reddish wood. The shadows dance as you work. The soft shuff of your adze a lonely, peaceful sound in the quiet room. You stop and run your palm over the area you have just finished. It is incredibly smooth, the thousands of tiny, overlapping scallops from your blade creating a texture that is both uniform and uniquely handmade. It is ready. You have created a perfect, smooth, and silent space. It is the best work you can do. You have used your tool not to build something that moves upon the water of the living, but to build something that will hold perfectly still in the eternal sands of the dead. The adze in your hands has become an instrument of devotion. The scent of cedar fades into the memory of dust. The quiet reverence of the Egyptian workshop gives way to the clang and roar of a new kind of forge. The world has turned, centuries have passed, and the secrets of metal have deepened. You are a craftsman in a new age, an age defined not by a single metal but by a partnership, an alloy. Your copper adze, the pride of your Egyptian predecessor, now seems quaint. It is a beautiful tool, but a soft one. You know its limitations all too well. On tough, knotty woods like oak, its edge would dull quickly, rolling over, requiring constant resharpening. It was a fine tool for a fine purpose, but for the heavy work of building a growing world, something more was needed. Today you are making that something more. The furnace before you burns with a familiar, ferocious heat, but the alchemy you perform is more advanced. In your clay crucible, you have melted the familiar reddish copper. But now you add the secret ingredient. From a small leather pouch, you take a measure of a heavy, gray, granular dust, cassiterite, the ore of tin. You pour it into the molten copper. The surface of the liquid metal swirls and shimmers as the two elements combine. This is the recipe that changed the world. About 9 parts copper, 1 part tin. Get the ratio wrong, and you create either a soft coppery metal or a brittle, useless alloy that shatters like glass. Early metallurgy was 1 part science, 3 parts stressful guesswork. Historians and archaeologists in the future will still argue whether this world-changing discovery was a happy accident, perhaps from smelting a batch of copper ore that happened to be naturally contaminated with tin, or the result of deliberate, systematic experimentation by ancient smiths seeking a better material. As you watch the two metals merge into one, it feels like a stroke of genius, a secret wrestled from the earth. The result of this union is bronze. You pour the molten bronze into a new kind of mold, not a simple open-faced carving in a stone, but a 2-part, baked clay mold, tied together with cordage. This allows you to create a more complex, three-dimensional shape. A socketed adze head. Instead of lashing the blade onto the outside of the handle, the top of the handle will now fit securely into a socket on the blade itself. It is a stronger, more stable design, a co-evolution of the tool's form and its material. After the bronze cools and you break the clay mold, you hold the new adze head in your hand. It is beautiful. It does not have the reddish warmth of copper, but a subtle golden brown luster. It is heavier, denser, and when you tap it against a stone, the sound is not a dull ting, but a clear, resonant ring. You take it to the whetstone to sharpen the edge. The hardness is immediately apparent. It resists the stone more than copper did, and the edge you are able to create is finer, sharper, and far more durable. You fit it to a sturdy oak handle, the wood tapering perfectly to fit inside the new socket. The finished tool feels aggressive, powerful. It has a sense of purpose that the softer copper tool lacked. Moving from copper to bronze is like upgrading from a dial-up modem to fiber optic internet. The basic concept is the same, but the performance is worlds apart. To test it, you find a thick, seasoned beam of oak, a notoriously hard and stubborn wood that would have been a day-long struggle for a flint adze and a frustrating task for a copper one. You take your stance, the familiar straddle, and you swing the new tool. The sound it makes upon impact is not a soft shuff or a solid thump. It is a sharp, percussive crunch. The bronze blade bites deep into the oak, shearing through the tough fibers with an authority that is startling. A large, heavy chip of wood flies from the beam. You look at the cutting edge. It is completely unharmed, still just as sharp as when you started. There is no rolling, no dulling. You swing again. Crunch. And again. Crunch. You fall into a rhythm, but it is a faster, more powerful rhythm than before. You are removing more wood with less effort. Your new bronze adze goes through that oak plank like it's made of butter. Very, very loud butter. This is the revolution of the Bronze Age, happening right here in your hands. This new alloy didn't just make better tools, it changed societies. The quest for tin, which is much rarer than copper, created vast new trade networks that spanned continents. It created wealth, it fueled armies, and it allowed for new feats of engineering and architecture. You pause, breathing heavily, and run your hand over the freshly hewn surface of the oak. The scalloped marks are there, the signature of the adze, but they are deeper, bolder. This tool will not last forever, of course. In a few thousand years, if it survives, it might fall victim to bronze disease, a creeping corrosion that will erupt in pale green, powdery spots, slowly eating it away from the inside out. Future museum curators will fight a constant battle to preserve it. But for now, in this moment, it is perfect. It is the pinnacle of technology, a golden tool for a golden age, ready to build wonders. The clear, ringing song of bronze cooling in the forge softens and is replaced by a new chorus of sounds. The sharp clink of hammer on chisel, the groan of ropes on wooden cranes, and the distant murmur of a bustling city. You are high above that city, standing on a network of wooden scaffolding that clings to the side of a structure so grand and luminous, it seems to have been built by the gods themselves. The sun, a brilliant Mediterranean white, reflects off the gleaming Pentelic marble all around you, making you squint. A warm breeze blows in from the sea, carrying the scent of salt, olive groves, and the dust of 1,000 workshops. The wooden scaffolding sways gently. It was probably assembled by the lowest bidder, so you try not to think about it too much and just focus on your work. You are a tekton, a carpenter, a master of wood in a world increasingly dominated by stone. But the stone shell of this great temple, this Parthenon, would be incomplete without its heart and bones of timber. Your task today is to hew the final face of a colossal roof beam. The log, a massive trunk of cypress, has already been hoisted up here, a feat of engineering in itself. It rests on supports spanning a section of the temple's inner colonnade. Below you, the stone floor seems miles away. The view, however, is incredible. You can see the whole of Athens spread out like a map, all the way to the shimmering sea at the port of Piraeus. It's a great perk of the job, assuming you have a healthy disregard for heights. Your tool is the pinnacle of the bronze adze maker's art. It is heavy, but perfectly balanced. The socketed head is seated so securely on its hickory handle that it feels like a single, solid piece. The golden bronze blade has been sharpened to a razor's edge, gleaming in the sunlight. Your first step was to establish a perfectly straight line along the rough, rounded side of the log. To do this, you and your apprentice used a cord rubbed with chalk, stretched it taut from one end to the other and snapped it, leaving a clear, straight line on the wood. Now your job is to remove all the wood above that line. The process is a two-step dance with two different tools. First, you take a heavy bronze axe and chop a series of deep notches or kerfs at regular intervals along the beam, cutting down precisely to the chalk line. Chop, chop, chop. The axe work is the brute force removing the bulk of the waste wood. Then you set the axe aside and take up your adze. Now the artistry begins. You take your familiar stance over the beam and begin to swing the adze, pulling it toward you to shear off the wood between the notches. The sound is the crisp, satisfying crunch you remember, the definitive voice of a bronze blade biting into tough, resinous wood. You work your way from one notch to the next, the adze smoothing the rough axe surface into a single flat plane. The foreman wants this beam perfectly square. Not mostly square, but flawless. You get the feeling he measures things with a level of precision that hasn't been invented yet. This obsession with perfection is everywhere. You can see it in the work of the stonemasons below. They are famous for their optical refinements, subtle curves and inclinations built into the temple to trick the human eye into seeing perfection. The long horizontal lines of the foundation and roof are given a slight upward curve so they don't appear to sag. The massive marble columns have a slight bulge, an entasis, to make them feel strong and alive, not skeletal. This same incredible attention to detail is expected of you. The roof you are helping to build is a complex masterpiece of timber framing, long since lost to time, but a wonder of its age. Classicists and architectural historians in the far future will still argue whether the builders of this place worked from complex scaled blueprints like modern architects, or if they relied on a system of standardized ratios and on-site geometric techniques using ropes and pegs to lay out these massive, optically perfect structures. From your vantage point, surrounded by the tangible reality of the work, it feels like a combination of both. A grand, overarching design guided by a master's vision, executed by hundreds of individual craftsmen like you, each using their well-honed skills to solve the problems right in front of them. You work steadily, the pile of fragrant cypress chips growing around your feet, fluttering down like snowflakes to the floor below. Your focus is absolute, your rhythm unwavering. The adze rises and falls, its bronze head flashing in the sun. You are leaving the same telltale scalloped surface as your ancestors, but your marks are more uniform, more precise, a testament to a superior tool and a tradition of refined skill. You are no longer just a woodworker. You are a builder of monuments, a small but vital part of a project that will be remembered for thousands of years. The beam beneath you is now perfectly flat, perfectly square, ready to take its place in the heavens of the temple. The bright attic sun dissolves into a cool gray mist. The scent of cypress and the warm sea breeze are replaced by the damp, earthy smell of a primeval forest floor. The gleaming marble of the temple gives way to the dark, towering trunks of pine and oak in a land that has not yet been named on any of your maps. You are no longer a Tecton, an artisan of a city-state. You are a Faber, a soldier engineer in the legions of Rome, and you are on the hostile northern frontier of a vast and hungry empire. The weather here is different from Athens. There is less time for philosophical discussion, and more time spent trying not to get trench foot in a swamp. The tool in your hand has changed too. The golden gleam of bronze is gone, replaced by the dull, practical gray of iron. This is the next great leap. Iron is not an alloy. It is an element, coaxed from its reddish ore in furnaces even hotter than those used for bronze. It cannot be easily cast into a final shape. It must be hammered while red hot, beaten, and folded and forged into a tool that is harder, tougher, and holds an edge far longer than bronze ever could. And most importantly, its ore is abundant. Iron is the democratic metal, and you and every one of your fellow legionaries are equipped with it. Your Adze, your Assia, is not a refined work of art. It is a mass-produced, brutally efficient tool of conquest. Your task is not to build a monument for the ages, but a fortification for the night. You are part of a legion on the march, and at the end of every single day, you build a complete, fortified camp from scratch. It is a breathtaking display of discipline and engineering. Around you, thousands of your comrades are working in perfect, drilled unison. Some dig a deep defensive ditch, the fossa. Others pile the excavated earth into a rampart, the agger. Your unit is responsible for the palisade, the vallum, a sharp wooden wall that will sit atop the rampart. Your centurion wants this wall built by sundown. Not because of a looming deadline, but simply because that is how long it is supposed to take. The Roman army doesn't do delays. It considers them a logistical error. You are working on a massive pile of stakes, each a thick log 10 feet long. Your specific job is to put a wicked point on one end. You use the adze for this, its heavy iron head biting deep into the green wood with each stroke. The familiar pull stroke is the most efficient way to carve the four-sided point, turning the log with your foot after each series of cuts. The sound is a wet, solid thud, 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 a sound repeated by hundreds of other soldiers around you, a monotonous, powerful rhythm of relentless industry. This iron adze isn't for creating art, it's for creating safety. It's a rugged, ugly, beautiful tool for convincing the local tribes that messing with you would be a very bad career move. This is the genius of the Roman military machine. Every legionary is not just a soldier, but a builder. In the heavy pack, the sarcina, that you carry on the march, alongside your shield, your rations, and your bedding, you also carry your own entrenching tools, a shovel, a pickaxe, a basket for moving earth. Your comrades jokingly call themselves Marius's mules, after the general who standardized these heavy loads, but no one questions their utility. You are a self-contained, mobile unit of destruction and construction. Military historians in the future will still argue whether the primary psychological impact of these instant fortifications was on the enemy, demoralizing them with an overwhelming show of discipline, or on the Roman soldiers themselves providing a bubble of order, a portable piece of Rome in the heart of a chaotic and hostile wilderness. Standing here, inside the half-finished walls, breathing the cold air of this foreign land, you know the truth is that it's both. The wall you are building is a weapon, and it is a shield. You finish pointing another stake and move on to a different task. A watchtower needs to be erected at the corner of the camp, and for that, you need squared timbers. You use the same technique you once used on the temple in Athens, scoring the log with an axe and then hewing to the line with your adze. But there is no time for perfection. The finish is rough and functional, the scalloped marks of your adze deep and hurried. All that matters is that the joint is strong, that the tower is stable. Speed is safety. Efficiency is life. The sun is beginning its descent, filtering weakly through the mist and the high canopy of the trees. The fort is nearly complete. The ditch is dug, the rampart is packed, and the sharp stakes you and your comrades have been making are now being hammered into place along the top. In a few hours, you have raised a fortress where before there was only wilderness. Your iron adze rests against a newly finished section of the wall, its gray blade stained with wood resin. It is a simple tool, but with it, you are building an empire, one camp at a time. The cold Roman mist gives way to a colder North Sea spray. The disciplined, monotonous thud of a legion at work fades over the centuries, replaced by the cry of gulls and the relentless hush of waves on a rocky shore. The ordered lines of the Roman fort have crumbled back into the earth, and in their place a new shape is rising. It is a shape that is all curves and fluid, organic lines, the skeleton of a predator waiting to be fleshed out. You are a Norse shipwright, and you are building a dragon, a longship. You stand in the lee of a gray, wind-scoured cliff at the head of a fjord. The sun makes a brief, apologetic appearance before disappearing behind the clouds again. You're pretty sure summer was last Tuesday. The air is sharp and tastes of salt, wet rock, and the pine tar that is being heated over a nearby fire. The tool in your hand is an iron adze, a descendant of the Roman assia, but it has evolved. The head is broader, the curve of the blade more pronounced, a specialized tool for a specialized task. Your work today is to shape one of the ship's ribs, its spanter. This is the task that gives the longship its legendary strength and resilience. You are not working with a straight hewn beam cut from the heart of a log. That is the Roman way, the Greek way, the imposition of a perfect geometric form onto nature. Your way is different. You work with the wood, not against it. Your material is a grown timber, a massive piece of oak that was selected because the tree itself grew in a curve. The grain of the wood already follows the shape of the rib you need to create. Finding a piece of oak that grew into the perfect curve for a specific place in the ship is like winning the lottery. A very specific, very splintery lottery. This method ensures that the rib has immense natural strength, free of the weak points of cross-cut grain. Your adze becomes an extension of your body, its own arc perfectly suited to this task. The curved oak is braced on trestles and you stand beside it, your body moving in a smooth, rocking motion. Your adze swings not in a straight line but in a curve, peeling away long, fragrant shavings of oak. The sound is a shearing, rhythmic chunk, chunk, chunk. It is the sound of shaping, of refining a natural form into a perfect one. The ship you are building is designed to be flexible, to writhe and bend in the violent waves of the open ocean. This is the opposite of Roman engineering, which was designed to be rigid and immovable, to make the waves apologize and go around. This flexibility comes from the ship's clinker-built hull, where the long planks, the strakes, are nailed together in an overlapping fashion, creating a skin that can shift and move. Your perfectly shaped ribs will be lashed to this skin, providing strength without creating a rigid, brittle cage. It is a design of profound genius, born from generations of experience on the unforgiving northern seas. Norse historians and archaeologists in the future will still argue whether the master shipwrights like you worked from precise inherited plans and wooden templates, or if the design was more intuitive and organic, with the ship's form being sung, or felt, out of the wood by a builder who had an almost mystical understanding of the materials. As you check the curve of your work, holding it up to the light, feeling its balance, it feels like both. A deeply ingrained tradition guided by an artist's eye. You pause for a moment and look out at the gray, choppy water of the fjord. Soon, this ship will be on that water, its fearsome dragonhead prow pointed west towards unknown lands. It will carry warriors and explorers across the sea, navigating by the sun and stars. On overcast days, the navigator might use a solar stein, a sunstone. It is a piece of clear crystal that, when held up to the sky, polarizes the light, revealing the true position of the sun even through a thick blanket of clouds. It is a small piece of magic, a secret of the northern seas. But the real magic is here, in the shipyard. It is the magic of turning trees into vessels that can fly over the waves. You turn back to your work, your adze feeling light and familiar in your hands. You take a few final, delicate strokes, smoothing the last rough spots on the inner curve of the rib. You run your calloused palm over the surface. It is smooth. The lines are perfect. The scalloped texture of the adze marks follows the grain in a beautiful flowing pattern. This single piece of wood is a testament to your skill, a perfect blend of natural strength and human artistry. Soon, you will fit it into the belly of the ship, one more bone in the skeleton of a sea drake, ready to carry your people to new horizons. The cold northern fjord warms into a brilliant turquoise lagoon. The gray, choppy sea flattens into a calm, impossibly clear sheet of blue, fringed by the white of surf breaking on a distant coral reef. You've traded in your heavy woolens and the constant threat of frostbite for a simple loincloth and the constant threat of a really bad sunburn. It's generally considered a fair trade. The scent of pine tar and salt spray is gone, replaced by the sweet, heavy fragrance of tiare flowers, coconut oil, and the warm, volcanic earth of a Pacific island. You are a master craftsman, a navigator, a central figure in a community that lives and breathes the ocean. The iron adze of the Norsemen is an echo from another world, another timeline. Here you have returned to stone, but it is stone perfected to an art form. Your adze, your toki, is a thing of profound beauty and function. The blade is not flint, but a dense, black basalt, quarried from a sacred volcanic site, and then painstakingly ground and polished for weeks on wet sand and coral blocks until its edge is keener than worked metal. Going back to stone after iron might seem like a downgrade, But a perfectly polished basalt blade is so sharp it makes you wonder what all the fuss about metal was. Plus, it never rusts. The blade is lashed with intricately braided senet, a cord made from coconut husk fibers to a beautifully carved wooden handle, its L-shape perfectly ergonomic. Your project is the most important in your village, the construction of a va'a, an ocean-faring outrigger canoe. This is the vessel that knits your world together, the vehicle of the greatest migration in human history. Using craft like this, your ancestors, the Austronesians, settled the vast empty triangle of the Pacific, navigating by stars, swells, and the flight of birds to find and populate islands separated by thousands of miles of open water. This is not a vessel for raiding. This is a vessel for finding new homes, for carrying your entire culture across an ocean that looks the same in every direction. The GPS for this trip is basically just knowing which way the birds are flying. Today you are shaping the ama, the outrigger float, from a long, light log of breadfruit wood. It is this float, attached to the main hull by two booms, the iako, that will give the canoe its stability on the open sea, allowing a long, narrow, and fast hull to remain upright in heavy swells. You work in the shade of a pandanus tree. The rhythmic talk of your basalt adds a familiar sound in the village. The sound is higher-pitched, sharper than an iron adze. It is the crisp sound of volcanic glass on wood. Your strokes are precise, shaving off fine white slivers of the soft wood. You are shaping the ama to be hydrodynamic, its ends elegantly pointed, its body curved to skim through the water with minimal resistance. Anthropologists and historians in your future will still argue whether the initial settlement of these remote islands was the result of deliberate, planned voyages of exploration, or the product of accidental drift voyages, where canoes were simply blown off course. But as you work, shaping this highly sophisticated craft, a product of 1,000 generations of accumulated knowledge, the idea of it being an accident seems absurd. Every part of this canoe is designed with purpose, for a specific and challenging environment. You pause your work and look up at the sky. You know the star paths that will guide you. You understand the way the ocean swells refract and bend around islands that are still below the horizon. A message you can feel through the hull of your canoe. Some navigators and other island groups even use stick charts, strange and beautiful lattices of wood and shell that don't map land but map the sea itself. Its currents, its waves, its very texture. It is a way of reading the ocean that is almost incomprehensible to those who have not been raised in it. You return to your work. The adze feels like a part of your own arm. The blade, though stone, is so perfectly shaped and polished that it cuts with almost no effort, leaving a surface that is nearly smooth, marked by the faintest, most delicate scallops. Later, the hull and all its parts will be sealed and caulked with a sticky paste made from breadfruit sap. You are not just building a boat. You are creating a living thing, a partner for your voyages. The toki is the tool that allows you to speak to the wood, to ask it to take the shape of a vessel that can dance with the great ocean. Your patient, rhythmic work is a prayer, a conversation, a continuation of a journey that began thousands of years ago on the far-off shores of Asia. The tropical sun of the Pacific softens into the filtered, gentle light of a Japanese mountain forest. The sound of the surf on the reef fades, replaced by the whisper of wind through towering cypress trees and the distant, percussive thwack of a bamboo water fountain. A shishiodoshi marking a slow and patient rhythm. You are a daiku, a master carpenter, and your workshop is a space of serene, almost sacred order. You are building a temple, a place of contemplation, in a misty cypress forest. It is probably the most tranquil construction site in human history, which of course only amplifies the immense pressure to not mess up. The tool in your hand is a chona, a Japanese adze. It is the culmination of centuries of refinement. The long, resilient handle is carved from Japanese white oak, its curve so graceful it seems to have grown that way. The head is a masterpiece of the blacksmith's art, forged from layers of hard and soft steel laminated together, giving it both a shatterproof resilience and an edge of terrifying sharpness. This tool is not for rough hewing. It is for the final, perfect surfacing of beams. a process that is both structural and deeply aesthetic. Your primary work today, however, is not with the adze but with the saw and chisel. In service of an art form known as kigumi, you are creating the joints that will hold this entire temple together. The master carpenter, your Torio, believes that nails and metal fasteners are a sign of weakness, a crude shortcut. The wood itself, when properly joined, is all that is needed. It's a beautiful philosophy, but it does make the entire process feel like a high-stakes three-dimensional puzzle. This traditional method of timber framing is what has allowed Japanese temples and pagodas to survive for over 1,000 years in a land of frequent, violent earthquakes. The complex, interlocking joints are not rigid. They are designed to flex, to absorb and dissipate the energy of a tremor, allowing the entire building to sway and settle back into place, unharmed. You are working on a massive beam of fragrant hinoki cypress. Your task is to cut one half of a complex splice joint, a kanawatsugi. You have already marked your cut lines with a sumitsubo, an ink pot that uses a silk thread pulled through a well of black ink to snap a perfectly straight, incredibly fine line onto the wood. The tolerance for error in this work is effectively zero. If your cut is off by the width of a single hair, you do not fill it or patch it. You would bow to your master, set the wood aside, and begin again, after a lengthy period of quiet contemplation on the nature of your failure. You pick up a nokogiri, a Japanese saw. Unlike its Western counterparts, it cuts on the pull stroke. This allows for a much thinner blade, greater control, and a cleaner, more precise cut. You guide the saw with your breath, your body still, your focus absolute. The sound is a soft, whispery zzzt, zzzt, zzzt. It is the sound of pure precision. After the saw cuts, you take up your nomi, a heavy razor-sharp chisel, and a wooden mallet. With a series of crisp, controlled taps, tock, 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 you remove the waste wood, defining the intricate male and female parts of the joint. Architectural historians in the far future will still argue whether the almost unbelievable complexity of some of these joints was born purely of structural necessity, or if it also became a form of high art, a secret language through which master carpenters could display their virtuosity. Some joints seem so much more elaborate than they need to be that they feel like a statement, a signature of a guild's hidden knowledge. Finally, with the joint cut, you take up your chona. Now you will impart the final finish to the beam's surface. This is a skill that takes a lifetime to master. You stand on the beam, feet planted, and swing the adze in a shallow, controlled arc. The blade just skims the surface, creating a beautiful, subtly scalloped, hand-worked texture known as chona shiage. The sound is a light, crisp shing, shing, shing. It is a sound of finality, of perfection. The finish is not perfectly flat like a machine-planed surface. It has a life, a texture that catches the light and reveals the hand of the craftsman. This attention to aesthetics is everywhere, even in the way the temple is sited to incorporate shake or borrowed scenery, perfectly framing a view of a distant mountain or a particular grove of trees as part of the building's very design. The moment of truth arrives. Your apprentice brings the corresponding beam, on which he has cut the mirror image of your joint. You guide the two massive pieces of wood together. They slide into one another, the complex interlocking shapes meeting with the softest shush of wood on wood. There is no gap, no friction. They become one. A single, small, carved wooden key is tapped into place, locking the joint under tension. It is now immensely strong, capable of bearing its load for 1,000 years, held together by nothing more than its own perfect geometry. The adze and the tradition it is a part of has reached a level of quiet, meditative perfection that is almost a spiritual practice. You are no longer the master, the Torio, whose hands move with the quiet confidence of 10,000 hours of practice. You are now at the beginning of that long, quiet road. You are the apprentice, the Deishi. Your place is not on the beam, but beside it. Your primary tool is not the adze, but the broom. You have become a world-class sweeper of fragrant cypress shavings. You are so proficient, you're pretty sure you could sweep competitively if that were a thing. Your days are spent in silent observation, in the patient, endless sharpening of chisels on water stones, in brewing the green tea for the midday break. This is the traditional Japanese apprenticeship, the shiti, It is a path of humility, a slow absorption of knowledge where you might spend years performing menial tasks before you are ever trusted to make a meaningful cut. From your position, you watch the master carpenter, the shisho. He is an old man, his movements spare and economical. He is working on a large pillar, giving it the final chona shiage finish. And as you watch, you realize the difference between skill and mastery. When you have been allowed to practice with the adze on a piece of scrap wood, your whole body is tense. You consciously think about every part of the swing, the lift, the angle of the blade, the pull. Your strokes are jerky, uneven. You use too much muscle, and the tool feels like a heavy, awkward weight at the end of your arms. When you try to copy his movements, it looks less like woodworking, and more like you're fighting a losing battle with a stubborn garden tool. But when the master works, it is like watching a form of dance. His body is relaxed, his breathing even. He and the long-handled adze seem to move as a single entity. There is no visible effort. The tool rises and falls in a fluid, continuous arc, its own weight and momentum doing all the work. His body is simply the conduit, the guide. The sound is a crisp, almost musical shing, shing, shing. The shavings that fly from the blade are not clumsy chips, but long, paper-thin ribbons of wood that curl and fall gracefully to the floor, where you will soon sweep them up. He is not forcing the tool to do his will. He is allowing it to do what it was made to do. The magic, you realize, has a very, very long learning curve. Historians of craft and pedagogy in the centuries to come will still argue whether these long silent apprenticeships were truly the most effective method for transmitting complex skills, or if their primary function was social and hierarchical, a way to control entry into the craft to ensure the absolute loyalty of the student and to maintain the authority of the master by cloaking the skills in an aura of mystique. From your perspective on the workshop floor, it feels less like a system of control and more like the only way something this profound can be taught. It cannot be explained in words. It must be absorbed through the eyes, through the air, through years of just being in the presence of mastery. The master rarely speaks to you. His primary teaching tool is a quiet grunt of approval, or more often, a look of mild, silent disappointment. It is surprisingly effective. Sometimes, for finishing a special post or beam, the master will use an older, even more difficult tool, the yarigana. It is a long, spear-like plane with a leaf-shaped blade at the end of a wooden shaft. He pulls it towards himself, the blade taking the thinnest possible shaving, leaving a rippling, luminous surface that no modern plane can replicate. It is a tool that requires even more skill than the adze, a piece of living history that he wields with the same unthinking grace. It is a reminder that the layers of knowledge in this craft are deeper than you can possibly imagine. At the end of the day, the master inspects your work, sharpening his chisels. He holds one up to the light, its polished steel edge a perfect, flawless line. He gives that quiet grunt of approval and sets it down. He gathers his tools, bows to the small shrine in the corner of the workshop, and leaves for his home. The workshop is silent now, save for the wind in the cypresses. The air is cool and smells of wood and wet stone. You are alone with the tools and the half-finished timbers of the temple. You walk over to the pillar the master was working on and run your hand over its surface. The texture is alive, a complex pattern of overlapping curves that feels warm and organic. It is his signature, his spirit, left in the wood. You pick up your own practice adze. It feels heavier than ever. You take your stance, you lift, and you try to empty your mind, to forget everything you think you know and just feel the tool, the wood, and the space between. The scent of the fresh hinoki cypress workshop fades, replaced by the dry, climate-controlled air of a museum's conservation lab. The quiet here is different. It is not the serene quiet of a mountain temple, but the profound, sterile silence of a place dedicated to halting the progress of time. You are no longer an apprentice nor a master. You have leaped forward 1,000 years and you are now a scholar, a specialist, a sort of wood detective. You don't solve crimes exactly, but you can sometimes tell if a Viking shipwright was having a bad day based on how sloppy his adze work was. On the padded table before you, under the bright, focused beam of a task lamp, lies a piece of the past. It is a waterlogged oak timber, dark as chocolate, recovered from the anaerobic mud of a riverbed where it has lain for centuries. Its provenance is uncertain, but its surface is a perfect textbook of the Adze's signature. To the untrained eye, it's just a rough, bumpy piece of old wood. To you, it is a manuscript, and you are fluent in the language in which it is written. Your tools are not saws and chisels, but calipers, magnifying glasses, and a digital microscope. You have access to scanning electron microscopes and laser imaging. Yet the ancient craftsman you are studying probably did more accurate work with just his eyes and his sense of touch. It's a humbling thought. You begin your reading. First, you measure the scallops. Their width, a consistent 4 inches, tells you the width of the adze's cutting edge. The blade was broad, a tool for heavy hewing. The depth of the cuts is remarkably uniform, suggesting a sharp blade and a craftsman with a steady, powerful, and rhythmic swing. This was no apprentice. This was the work of a master, someone for whom the tool was a familiar extension of their body, just like the daiku you once watched with such awe. The regularity of the overlapping strokes is a sign of immense confidence. You lean closer, adjusting your lamp. The angle of the cuts, a consistent slant from right to left, tells you the craftsman was almost certainly right-handed. You can even begin to reconstruct his stance. The strokes are long and clean, suggesting he was standing over the beam, straddling it, allowing for a long, powerful pull that used his back and legs. He was not cramped or working in an awkward position. He had space and he had time. This is a story told not in words, but in the simple geometry of impact. This entire field of study is aided by experimental archaeology, a discipline where researchers painstakingly recreate ancient tools and then use them, filming and measuring their every move. They hew beams with replica bronze adzes. They hollow logs with flint, and they record the exact marks left behind. This provides a crucial baseline, a dictionary for translating the marks you see on this ancient timber into the human motions that created them. It is how you know the difference between the marks left by a soft copper blade versus a hard iron one, or the telltale chatter marks of a blade that is dull or poorly seated on its handle. Using dendrochronology, the science of reading tree rings, your colleagues have already dated this piece of oak. They have matched its unique pattern of wide and narrow growth rings to a master chronology for the region, and they know, with astonishing certainty, that the tree was felled in the autumn of 1182. Combining that data with your analysis, you are building a remarkably intimate portrait of a person who has been dead for nearly a millennium. You move the microscope over the surface, and the screen on your monitor displays a magnified alien landscape of wood fibers. And there, within one of the scallop marks, you see it, a series of tiny parallel striations. These are the ghost of the blade's edge itself. You can see a minute nick, a flaw in the iron that was transferred to the wood with every single swing, a tiny, unique fingerprint. Archaeologists and forensic wood specialists still argue whether it is truly possible to identify the unique signature of a single craftsman from their tool marks alone. So many variables, the type of wood, the state of the blade's sharpness, the worker's fatigue, can alter the marks. But finding a repeated flaw like this, a blade's unique fingerprint, is as close as you can get. For a moment, you feel an electric connection to him, this anonymous craftsman from 1182. You can picture him, pausing to wipe sweat from his brow, his knuckles sore, the scent of fresh-cut oak filling the air around him. It is funny to think that this priceless artifact you are handling with such reverent care might have been, to him, just another beam, destined for a bridge or a barn, forgotten the moment it was finished. But he left his story on it all the same, and now, centuries later, you are here to read it. The cool, sterile air of the lab warms and grows thick with the scent of salt water and damp cedar. The silence is broken by the cry of a raven and the gentle, persistent drumming of rain on a wooden roof. You have left the world of academic observation and returned to the world of creation. This time in a coastal village, nestled between the deep, temperate rainforest and the gray, restless waters of the Pacific Northwest. Before you, resting in a long, open-sided carving shed, is a colossal log of western red cedar, a tree that was a sapling centuries before any of the ships you've worked on in other lives ever set sail. Your task is to bring forth the story that sleeps within this log. You are a master carver, and this will be a totem pole, a silent orator that will proclaim your clan's history, its lineage, and its rights to all who see it. Each figure you carve is a crest, a character in a story. a chapter in a history book written in wood. It's like carving a combination of a legal document, a coat of arms, and your family's most epic profile picture all at once. This pole will stand for a century, telling its tale to the wind and the rain, so it's important to get the beak on the Thunderbird just right. You don't want your great-grandchildren pointing out your sloppy beak work. Your primary tool for the fine finishing work is the Adze. It is a beautiful and highly specialized instrument. The steel blade, acquired through trade and carefully shaped, is lashed to a short handle carved into the shape of a D. You hold it with one hand, your fingers wrapped through the opening, giving you incredible control. It is not a tool of brute force, but of artistry. With it, you can create the sweeping, fluid lines and the textured, rippling surfaces that are the hallmarks of your people's art. You are working on the section of the pole that will become the bear, an ancestor of your clan. The rough shape has already been blocked out with larger adzes and axes. Now you begin the fine work. You use the Adze to define the great curving lines of the bear's powerful shoulders and the deep expressive sockets of its eyes. The sound of the Adze is a sharp percussive rhythm against the soft drumming of the rain. Tuk, 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 tuk. With each cut, a small fragrant chip of red cedar flies away. You know from your other life, the one in the quiet lab, that you are leaving a story in the wood, a story of your own stance, your handedness, your skill. The surface you leave is a testament to your hand, a rippling, living texture that no machine could ever replicate. This is the bold, formline art style of the Northwest Coast. Anthropologists and art historians in the distant future will still argue whether this iconic style was a sudden artistic innovation that spread rapidly along the coast, or the result of a much slower evolution, with ancient roots that are now lost to time, carved on wooden objects that have long since returned to the forest floor. As you carve the distinctive U-shapes and ovoids that define the bear's joints and eyes, it feels like a language that is both ancient and immediate, a grammar of form that you speak as fluently as your own tongue. It is a common misconception among outsiders that your poles are idols to be worshipped. They are not. They are monuments. Some tell the story of a great potlatch, a feast where a chief validates his claims by giving away immense wealth. Others are memorials to a great leader who has passed into the spirit world. The one you are carving is a house frontal pole, which will stand before a new longhouse, its figures proclaiming the identity of the family within. When it is finally raised, the base of the pole might be anointed with precious ulichin grease, a rich oil from a small fish that is a vital food and trade good, its scent a blessing for the new monument. You move to the bear's face, your Adze work becoming more delicate. You use the corner of the blade to incise the fine lines of the nostrils and the powerful curve of the mouth. The work is physically demanding, yet it is a meditative, spiritual act. The elders of your clan sit nearby watching, sometimes singing the songs that tell the story of the bear, their voices a low, resonant hum that guides your hands. The story flows from them through you, through the Adze and into the wood. The red cedar is soft and yielding, its straight grain a joy to carve. To the traders from the south, it's a valuable commodity for shingles and planks, but to you, it is the sacred medium for your culture's memory. You are not just removing wood, you are revealing the form, the spirit, that already exists within. The Pacific rainforest recedes and the scent of red cedar is replaced by the smell of wood smoke, damp soil and livestock. The quiet, rhythmic drumming of rain on a shed roof gives way to a boisterous and muddy communal effort. You are in a clearing in a small village in early medieval Europe. The sky is a familiar, soft gray, and the ground underfoot is a thick, churned mud. This is not a silent, sacred space for creating art. This is a noisy, pragmatic, and deeply social construction site. Building this new longhouse is a full community effort. Everyone has a job, from the master carpenter to the small child whose only task is to not get in the way. He is not succeeding. Your task as one of the village's skilled woodworkers is to help shape the very bones of the new building, the cruck frames. These are the great soaring A frames that will hold up the heavy thatched roof and define the entire shape of the longhouse. Before you, lying on the muddy ground, are two immense curving timbers of green oak, felled just a week ago. Like the Viking shipwrights, you have chosen trees that grew with a natural curve. using the wood's innate strength to your advantage. Your job is to hew a flat face on the inner side of each of these timbers, so they can be joined at the peak and provide a flat surface for the interior walls. You wield a heavy, long-handled adze with a broad iron blade. It is a tool for big, powerful strokes, not for delicate finishing work. The green oak is dense and fibrous, and each swing requires your full strength. You stand on one of the massive timbers, feet planted wide, and swing the adze between them. The sound is a deep, wet thwump as the blade sinks into the unseasoned wood, followed by a tearing sound as you lever out a thick, heavy chip. It's a jarring, shoulder-shaking impact, a world away from the delicate tuk-tuk of the D-adze on soft cedar. Working with green oak is a race against time. It's easier to cut now, but you know that as the finished frame dries over the years, it will slowly twist, shrink, and warp, settling into its final shape. It's like building with a very slow, very heavy snake. You work in a team with another carpenter on the opposite timber, your swings creating a steady pounding rhythm. Thwump, thwump, thwump. It is the heartbeat of the construction. This longhouse is the standard dwelling of your time, a single, long hall where an entire extended family will live, eat, and sleep. And they won't be alone. In the winter, the family's most valuable livestock, a cow perhaps or a few sheep, will be brought inside to live at one end of the hall. Sharing your home with a cow has its benefits. It's warm, and it's a very reliable, if loud, alarm clock. The downsides are mostly smell-related. Historians and archaeologists in your future will still argue whether this practice of housing humans and livestock under one roof was primarily for the practical benefit of the animal's body heat warming the dwelling, or if it was more a reflection of a family's wealth, where their animals were their most valuable possession and needed to be kept close safe from wolves and thieves. Looking around at your neighbors, you know it's both. The cow is warmth and it is survival. Once the inner faces of the cruck blades are hewn flat, they will be joined at the top with a massive mortise and tenon joint and a wooden peg. The walls will be filled in with wattle and daub. The wattle is a simple woven lattice of thin branches, and the daub is a thick, sticky plaster made from wet clay, sand, straw, and yes, animal dung. It's cheap, it's insulating, and it makes the whole village smell terrible for a week. You are reminded of the stories of Egyptian sunscreens and realize that some useful, if unpleasant, materials are universal. By midday, your cruck frame is finished. It lies on the ground, a massive wooden A. Now comes the moment of truth. The master carpenter shouts, and everyone, men, women, and older children, gathers around. With ropes and long poles, and a great deal of coordinated grunting and shouting, the entire community begins to raise the massive frame. It lifts slowly, dripping mud rising against the gray sky. It is an act of communal will, of shared strength. The frame settles into its place on the stone foundation pads with a great, shuddering thud. It is up. The first bone of the new house is in place. You stand back, leaning on your heavy adze, sweat cooling on your brow. Your arms and back ache. But you are filled with a deep, simple satisfaction. You have not been creating a sacred text or a monument to a god. You have been building a home, a shelter for your community, with your own two hands and the shared strength of your neighbors. The muddy field of the longhouse construction dries over the centuries, and the boisterous shouts of a village raising a frame are replaced by the focused, rhythmic sounds of a specialized workshop. The air no longer smells of damp earth and livestock, but of seasoned oak, of the forge, and of something sweet and warm. Like vanilla and caramel, you are a cooper, a barrel maker, and your world is one of complex curves and precise angles. Your job is to create a perfectly strong, watertight container from a pile of flat wooden staves. It is a practical form of magic, the kind that involves a lot of geometry and a very sharp adze. Your workshop is an organized chaos of wood. Stacks of prepared staves made from air-dried oak lean against the walls. Metal hoops of varying sizes are hung from pegs. The floor is buried ankle-deep in a sea of wood shavings, a pale, fragrant tide that marks your constant, patient work. In the corner, a forge glows, where your apprentice is heating a long strip of iron that will become a hoop. This craft requires a partnership of wood and metal, of your shaping skill and the blacksmith's art. The barrel was a revolutionary piece of technology, the standardized shipping container of its age, far more durable and practical than the fragile clay amphorae it replaced. Your job is to make the perfect vessel for wine, beer, and spirits. In a way, you are a crucial component of many people's happiness. It is a noble calling. Today, your main task is to hollow the staves. Each stave must have a precise concave curve on its inner face and a convex curve on its outer face. This double curve, the bouge, is what gives a barrel its distinctive bulging shape, which makes it stronger and easier to roll and maneuver. For the hollowing, you use a tool born for this single purpose, the cooper's adze. It is a short-handled tool, meant for one-handed use. Its steel blade is not wide and flat, but narrow and deeply curved, like a metal C-clamp that has been sharpened to a razor's edge. You take a stave and secure it on your shaving horse, a simple but ingenious workbench that uses a foot pedal to clamp the wood in place. You pick up your adze. The work is fast, precise, and rhythmic. You pull the adze toward you in a series of short, quick, overlapping strokes. The sound is not a heavy thump or a resonant crunch, but a rapid, whispery chick, 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 chick. With each stroke, a small curved shaving flies from the wood. You are not measuring with a ruler. Your guides are your eyes, your hands, and the ingrained knowledge of your muscles. You hollow the center more deeply, tapering to a shallower cut at the ends of the stave. It is a fluid sculptural process repeated hundreds of times a day. Maritime historians in your future will still argue whether the widespread adoption of the barrel was driven more by its incredible durability and efficiency for shipping, or by its transformative and likely accidental effect on the flavor of wine and spirits. Was it a logistical innovation first or a culinary one? You, of course, are well aware of this secondary magic. After a barrel is assembled, but before the final hoops are driven on, you will toast it. You will stand the open-ended barrel over a small, contained fire of oak chips, letting the heat and smoke wash over the inner surface you have just so carefully adzed. This toasting process caramelizes the natural sugars in the oak, unlocking the compounds that will, over years of aging, impart flavors of vanilla, clove, and caramel to the wine or whiskey held within. It is a delicate art. Toast it too little, and you get no flavor. Toast it too much, and you've created a very expensive charcoal briquette, and nobody wants to drink a vintage that tastes of failure. You finish hollowing the last stave for the barrel. You run your hand along its inner surface. It is a perfect, smooth curve, a mosaic of tiny textured scallops left by your adze. It is ready. Later, you will raise the barrel, standing all the staves up inside a hoop, forming a large, splayed-out wooden flower. Then, with steam and fire, you will slowly bend them into their final familiar shape. But it all begins here, with this one specific task, with this one specialized tool. Your adze is not a universal instrument for building temples or ships or houses. It has evolved, becoming a focused, perfected tool for a single, crucial step in a long and respected craft. It is a testament to the quiet, specific, and essential work that turns simple wood into the vessels of global commerce and fine taste. The scent of toasted oak fades into the simpler, cleaner smell of cool steel and sharpening oil. The rhythmic chaos of the cooper's workshop has fallen silent. The day's work is done. The floor is deep with shavings, the tools are scattered on your bench, and the last light of evening filters through the dusty workshop window. But your work is not quite finished. There is one final ritual, a quiet conversation that you have with your tools at the end of every day. You pick up your adze. Its high-carbon steel head is heavy and cool in your hand. You run your thumb carefully over its cutting edge. It is dull, its keenness worn away by a day of cutting tough wood. A dull tool is more dangerous than a sharp one. It is also more frustrating, and far more likely to make you say words your mother wouldn't approve of. You unseat the adze head from its handle and carry it over to your sharpening station. This is the zen part of woodworking. No loud noises, no heavy lifting. Just you, a piece of steel, and a stone, having a long, slow conversation about the nature of sharpness. You have a series of whetstones, each with a different grit. You submerge the coarsest one in a pan of water. watching as a stream of tiny bubbles rises from its surface. When the bubbles stop, the stone has absorbed all the water it can hold and is ready. You place the wet stone on a non-slip mat and take the adze head in your hands. You hold it at a precise, consistent angle, a bevel that you have learned through years of practice. Then you begin. You push the blade across the stone, then pull it back. The sound is a low, gritty, hypnotic whisper. Shh, shh, shh. It is the sound of abrasion, of the stone's harder grit cutting into the softer steel, slowly reshaping it. A thick gray slurry of water and microscopic steel particles begins to form on the surface of the stone, a sign that the process is working. You work your way across the entire curved edge, your movements even and steady. Your mind focused on that single point of contact between stone and steel. The quality of this modern steel is a marvel, the result of centuries of metallurgical refinement. The secret is carbon. Adding a small amount of carbon to iron creates steel, and the ability to control that content and to harden and temper the metal is what allows this tool to hold such a fine edge. Tool historians and metallurgists in your future will still argue whether the legendary ancient bladesmiths who created Damascus steel or pattern-welded Viking swords had a true scientific understanding of carbon and crystalline structures, or if their astounding results were the product of secret, ritualized traditions of trial and error. Looking at the simple, dark steel in your hands, you appreciate both the science and the artistry that brought it here. After many minutes on the coarse stone, you have established a new, sharp, but rough edge. You wipe the blade clean and move to a finer grit stone. The sound changes immediately. The low, gritty whisper becomes a higher-pitched, smoother hiss. She. It is a softer, more refined sound. Here, you are not aggressively removing metal, but polishing away the scratches left by the coarser stone, honing the edge to a new level of keenness. Your movements become lighter, your touch more delicate. You are chasing the burr, a tiny wire-like fringe of metal that forms on the opposite side of the edge as you sharpen. You work one side until you can feel the burr, then you flip the blade and work the other side to remove it. Finally, you move to the last stage. You take a leather strop, a thick strip of leather mounted on a wooden block and charged with a fine green honing compound. This is for the final polish, for removing the last, microscopic imperfections from the edge. The sound now is almost silent. A soft, leathery swish, swish, swish. You are not just sharpening the blade now. You are perfecting it. You use a little trick to check your progress, holding the edge up to the single light bulb hanging over your bench. A truly, perfectly sharp edge is so fine that it will not reflect any light at all. If you can see a tiny glinting line, it means the edge is not yet perfect. You strop until the reflection is gone. The goal is an edge so sharp it feels like it could split a single atom, though you'll settle for being able to shave the hair off your arm with it. It's good to have realistic goals. You carefully test it on your arm, and the blade glides over your skin, silently wiping away a small patch of hair. It is perfect. You wipe the blade clean, give it a thin coat of camellia oil to prevent rust, and reseat it on its handle. It is whole again. The tool is not just an inanimate object. It is a partner in your craft, and this daily ritual is an act of respect. It is a quiet promise that when you begin work tomorrow, you will both be ready. The quiet of the workshop, with its intimate ritual of sharpening, gives way to the rhythmic roar and high-pitched scream of a new kind of power. The world is changing, growing louder, faster. From your workshop door, you can see the new sawmill built on the river, its great water wheel turning relentlessly, powering a long, vertical saw that slices through enormous logs with a terrifying mechanical efficiency. The new sawmill can cut more lumber in a single day than you and 3 other hewers could process in a month. It doesn't take breaks, it doesn't complain about splinters, and its work is perfectly, boringly identical every single time. It's hard to compete with that. You are a hewer of beams, a master of the adze. Your entire life has been spent learning the art of turning a round, rough log into a square, sturdy timber with nothing but your eye, your strength, and your sharp edge. But the world no longer values your particular art in the same way. The signature of your craft, the beautiful, scalloped, hand-worked surface, is beginning to look old-fashioned to some. The new fashion, the new mark of quality, is a surface that is perfectly, flawlessly flat. A surface with all the soul and character of a tax form. This new aesthetic is achieved with a different tool. The hand plane. You have one in your shop, a heavy block of beechwood with a gleaming steel blade set into its sole. You've had to learn to use it. It does its job well, peeling off translucent, whisper-thin shavings of wood, but it feels polite. The adze is a conversation with the wood, a rhythmic dance of removing material. The plane is just giving the wood a silent, stern lecture on the virtues of being flat. The Industrial Revolution, this great turning of the world, is transforming everything. Water power, and now the talk of steam, is being harnessed to do the work that once required the skill of human hands. Social historians in the future will still argue whether this shift was primarily a story of economic progress and efficiency, or if it also represented a deeper cultural loss, a de-skilling of the workforce that severed the intimate connection between a craftsman and the object of their creation. For you, it is not a debate. You feel it in your bones. The demand for your specific skill is shrinking. A client brings you a set of beams for a new house. They have come straight from the sawmill, already cut into rough squares, but their surfaces are fuzzy and marked with the vertical scars of the saw blade. The client doesn't want the texture of an adze finish. He wants them smooth. So you find yourself in a strange position. You use your adze for the initial flattening, your familiar, powerful strokes quickly removing the saw marks. The familiar rhythm is there, the clean thump of the blade, the flying chips. You leave behind the beautiful undulating surface that has been the mark of a well-made beam for thousands of years. But you cannot stop there. You must now erase your own work. You pick up the heavy hand plane and set it on the adzed surface. You push it forward, and with a soft shh, a shaving of wood curls up from the blade's mouth, and a small section of your adze marks vanishes, replaced by a perfectly flat, almost glossy surface. You do it again and again, working your way down the beam, methodically erasing your own signature, your own art, until the entire beam is as flat and anonymous as the ones produced entirely by the mill. It feels like a betrayal. You think of the Shakers, a religious community in the New World who have a different view. They embrace new technologies like the circular saw, believing that efficiency is a form of worship, a way to dedicate more time to spiritual matters. Yet they combine this with an obsessive, almost divine dedication to quality and hand-finished perfection. Perhaps that is the way forward, a marriage of the new and the old. But for you, for the pure, ancient art of hewing, the path seems to be narrowing. The adze is no longer the primary tool for shaping timber. It is becoming a relic, a tool for rough work, for shaping the curved timbers of a ship's hull, or for the occasional rustic effect desired by a wealthy client. The quiet, methodical work is being lost, drowned out by the scream of the saw and the whisper of the plane. Your art is becoming a memory. The roar of the sawmill fades into the gentle, ambient noise of a modern weekend. The air is no longer thick with sawdust and the promise of industry, but with the quiet, dusty scent of things forgotten. You are in a cavernous old barn, a place repurposed for selling the past to the present, a flea market filled with the ghosts of 100 farmhouses and workshops. You are not looking for anything in particular. You are simply browsing, letting your hands drift over the surfaces of old furniture, worn books, and tarnished silverware. In a dark corner, you find a series of wooden crates filled with old tools. You kneel down. The smell of rust, old oil, and dry, dead wood rises to meet you. You find the usual suspects: saws with missing teeth, wooden-bodied planes, and a tangle of wrenches. But then your hand closes around a familiar yet strange shape. You pull it out. It is a tool with a long, gracefully curved handle and a heavy hoe-like head. An adze. You find it buried under 3 identical-looking monkey wrenches and a thing that might be a medical instrument or a kitchen gadget. You decide it's best not to think about that one too hard. You stand up, holding the adze in both hands. It is heavy, solid. The steel head is a dark, mottled gray, peppered with the deep pitting of a century of slow, patient rust. The cutting edge is a mess of chips and dings. It looks like it was last used to chop rocks, and the hickory handle has more fine cracks than a detective novel. It's perfect. You run your hand along the handle. The wood is weathered and silver gray, but in the spots where a man's hands would have held it, one near the head for control, one at the end for power, the wood is worn down, burnished to a dark, almost polished smoothness. You can feel the ghost of its last user in the very shape of the wood. It is an imprint of countless hours of hard work, a story told in friction and time. This tool is a survivor. It is a direct link to the world that existed before the sawmill, before the anonymous perfection of the machine. It was a tool of the arts and crafts movement, even if its maker never knew it. That movement, a rebellion against the soullessness of industrial production, championed the beauty of the handmade, valuing the visible marks of the tool as a sign of the human hand, a signature of honesty. This Adze is the physical embodiment of that idea. Historians of technology in your own time still argue whether the modern resurgence of interest in old hand tools is a genuine craft revival, a return to core skills, or a form of romantic nostalgia, primarily practiced by hobbyists seeking a feeling of authenticity in a digital world. As you hold the tool, you feel that the distinction doesn't really matter. The connection is real. You can feel the presence of the Roman legionary, the Viking shipwright, the Japanese daiku, all the way back to the first person who lashed a sharp stone to a stick. Their knowledge, their rhythm, is encoded in the very form and balance of this object. You inspect the dark steel of the head more closely, turning it over in the dim light. And there, stamped into the metal near the pole, you see it. 2 letters crudely stamped, JB, an owner's mark. Suddenly, the anonymous ghost who held this tool has a name, or at least a set of initials. JB was a carpenter, a farmer, a shipwright. He used this tool to build his house, his barn, his boat. He swung it day after day, his muscles aching, his hands calloused. He sharpened this very edge, just as you saw in your mind's eye, holding it to the light to check its keenness. The tool is no longer just an artifact. It is an heirloom, a legacy. You make a decision. This tool's working life is not over. You carry it to the front of the barn where the old man running the sale is sitting in a rocking chair. He glances at the rusty Adze. He thinks he's selling you a piece of forgotten junk for a few dollars. You know you are buying a time machine. It feels like a fair trade. You carry it out into the bright afternoon sun, its weight a comforting, solid presence in your hands. You are not just taking home an old tool. You are taking home a responsibility to restore its edge, to honor its history, and to let it speak again, to let its unique scalloped voice be heard one more time. You are back in your own workshop. It is quiet, clean, and smells of sawdust and finishing oil. On your workbench, under the steady glow of a modern lamp, lies the old Adze. The journey is not over. In many ways, it has just begun. Bringing this tool back to life is part archaeology, part metallurgy, and part sheer stubbornness. You're pretty sure its original owner, JB, would approve, or at least be surprised his old tool isn't at the bottom of a well. The restoration is a slow, patient process. You soak the pitted head in a bath of simple white vinegar for 2 days, letting the mild acid dissolve the rust. When you pull it out, it is covered in a dark, ugly sludge. But underneath, the bare steel is revealed for the first time in a generation. You clean it with a wire brush and oil, not polishing it to a mirror shine, but leaving the dark patina and the deep pits of age. You are cleaning it, not erasing its history. For the hickory handle, you scrub it gently with soap and water, then give it a deep, nourishing coat of linseed oil. The dry, gray wood drinks it in, and the color deepens to a warm, rich brown, the grain and the smooth, worn handholds coming back to life. Then comes the most important part, restoring the edge. Following the ritual you know by heart, you take the head to your sharpening stones. But this is not the gentle honing of a well-maintained blade. This is a resurrection. The edge is chipped and rounded, so you start on your coarsest stone, spending a long time re-establishing the primary bevel, grinding away the damaged steel to find the good metal beneath. The sound is a loud, rough grrrnd, the sound of rebirth. Then you move through the finer stones, the sound softening to a hiss and finally to a whisper, until a new terrifyingly sharp edge gleams along the old pitted steel. Now the tool is whole again, its voice restored. It needs a project, not a grand architectural undertaking, but something small, personal. You find a block of cherry wood cut from a tree that fell in a storm last winter. It is a beautiful piece of wood. Its heartwood a warm reddish pink, and it smells faintly of almonds when you cut it. You will make a bowl, a simple shallow bowl, the kind of object that has been made and used for 10,000 years. Such items, small handmade wooden objects for the home, are known as treen, and for centuries they were the humble, essential tools of daily life before the age of plastic and mass production. You secure the block of wood to your bench. You pick up the restored adze. It feels alive in your hands, the handle warm from your own grip, the head heavy and eager. You take the first swing, the adze bites into the cherry wood with a solid thunk, and the handle vibrates with the memory of 1,000 other first swings on 1,000 other projects. It feels less like a tool, and more like a very opinionated collaborator. The balance is a little strange, the handle a little crooked, but you adjust. You are not just using a tool. You are having a conversation with JB and all the others who came before him. You fall into the ancient rhythm of hollowing. Your strokes are short and controlled, pulling the blade toward you, scooping out the wood. Thuk, thuk, thuk. Each cut is a shallow curved hollow. You overlap them, working in concentric circles from the outside in, the bowl slowly deepening with each pass. This is what the adze was born for. Chips of fragrant cherry wood litter the floor around you. This simple, satisfying work is the reason people are drawn back to these old ways. Cultural historians in your time still argue whether this modern maker movement is a true countercurrent to mass consumerism, or just another form of it, the consumption of authenticity as a status symbol. But here, in your quiet workshop, with the scent of cherry wood filling the air, the debate feels irrelevant. The simple act of making is real. You pause to run your hand along the inside of the emerging bowl. The surface is a landscape of interlocking scallops, a texture that is both beautiful to the eye and pleasing to the touch. It's the kind of rustic, hand-tooled finish that fancy furniture companies charge a fortune to imitate with machines. You are doing it the old-fashioned way, by actually being rustic. The work is nearly done. The shape is there. A simple, graceful, and profoundly useful object. You have taken a forgotten tool, a ghost of the past, and used it to create something new. You have joined the long, unbroken line of craftsmen, adding one more small, quiet verse to the endless song of the adze. The adze's work is done. The final rhythmic thunk, thunk, thunk of the hollowing has faded, leaving a profound and satisfying silence in your workshop. The interior of the cherry wood bowl is now a landscape of soft, overlapping scallops, a perfect record of the tool's timeless voice. You take a curved metal scraper, its edge honed like a razor, and take a few light, whispery passes around the rim and the interior, just to knock down any stray fibers. You are not trying to erase the texture. The texture is the soul of the piece. You are merely tidying the edges. The bowl is done. It is not perfectly round. It is not perfectly symmetrical. If a machine had made it, it would be considered a defect. Since you made it by hand, with a tool that has its own history and quirks, it is called character. This is the heart of the Japanese philosophy of wabi-sabi, an appreciation for the beauty of things that are imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. This bowl, with its slight asymmetries and the clear marks of its creation, is a perfect expression of that idea. Now comes the final magic. You take a soft, clean cloth and dip it into a tin of a simple homemade wood finish, a mixture of beeswax and mineral oil. It smells like a salad that is also a candle, a surprisingly pleasant and comforting combination. You begin to rub the finish into the wood. The effect is immediate and breathtaking. The pale pinkish cherry wood darkens instantly, and the grain, which was subtle before, now leaps out in a riot of deep reds, browns, and swirling patterns. The oil makes the wood luminous, as if it is lit from within. You coat the entire piece, inside and out, the scalloped adze marks catching the light in 1,000 different ways. Philosophers of aesthetics still argue whether an object's truest beauty lies in its perfect, idealized, flawless form, or in the story that it tells through the marks of its creation and the patina of its age. Looking at this bowl, gleaming on your workbench, you have no doubt about where you stand. Its beauty is its story. You could even, if you chose, carve your own maker's mark on the bottom, a tradition as old as craft itself, a way of signing your name to the long history of this Adze. With the bowl set aside to dry, you turn your attention one last time to the tool. You take the Adze in your hands and wipe the blade clean with an oily rag, removing the last traces of cherry wood resin. You check the edge. It is still sharp, ready for more. You wipe down the old hickory handle, your hand lingering on the smooth, worn spots where your own grip is now beginning to merge with the ghost of JBS. You place it back in its spot on the tool rack, its work for the day and for this long journey now complete. You stand in the middle of your workshop. The shavings on the floor are a problem for tomorrow you. Tonight you has earned a moment of peace. The air is thick with the scent of wood and oil and accomplishment. The journey that began with you, standing in a nameless river holding a simple stone and a branch in your hands, has come to this. Through the ages, through the hands of countless craftsmen, through the rise and fall of empires and technologies, the simple, honest work has remained. The Adze, in all its forms, was there, patiently shaping the world, one curved, scalloped cut at a time. The echo of its rhythm is the heartbeat of human ingenuity. And now the workshop begins to fade from view, the warm glow of the lamp softening into a gentle, distant light. The rich scent of cherry wood and beeswax slowly dissipates, leaving only the quiet, comfortable air of your own room. The story of the Adze is finished. Its long journey through time has found a peaceful end, and the tools have all been put away to rest. You can let the images go now. The Egyptian sun, the Viking fjord, the Japanese temple, the quiet modern workshop, allowing them all to dissolve into the soft darkness behind your eyes. Your own work for the day is done, and you can feel a pleasant, gentle heaviness beginning to settle deep in your muscles, a comfortable weariness that invites a long and peaceful rest. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to think about. There is only the soft weight of your blankets, the gentle rise and fall of your own breathing, and the deep, welcoming silence that comes after a story is told. Let the last of your thoughts drift away like the finest wood shavings, catching the last light before disappearing into the quiet dark. Just ease into the stillness now. Let it all go. It is time to rest, time to sleep. Sleep now.